So, why to celebrate the full moon or with the moon? Um, Maybe even to say why to celebrate at all. There is all these different traditions that have their own holidays or ways of celebrating, and although it enriches the culture, the folklore of what human civilizations or ethnicities or cultures have been creating. It's also much dividing between different groups, different identity groups of like based on spiritual belief. Um, yes, there are of course other ways to create division, like nationality or the genderism versus typicality or neurodivergency. It's a new way that comes. Um, but still, why to celebrate? I mean, first of all, it's never bad to find a reason to celebrate something, but in particularly, there the moon when the moon is full, it's full all over the planet. Um, or even to say more, like different religions would have yearly celebrations, holidays, in different dates because of different calendars. But possible to say that there are actually four holidays that are trans ethnic, trans cultural, trans traditional, and also trans human species. It's like the equinoxes and the solstices. Um, it's all Earth celebrated at the same time, and it's in a way the perhaps original for yearly holidays, and possibly also if to create a religion, maybe to call it, that would unify, that would be the what for me makes most sense, to make it according to the actual astronomical alignment and not in relation to a particular calendar that is based on tradition. Yes, there are many ways to celebrate though these holidays, and that's something else. And there is a lot of diversity in this. That comes back to the moon. Same idea. It's in a way every cycle, like the year, have these, maybe to say, four corners of the circle, and the solstices as the two poles, and then the equinoxes as the two mid um, points, maybe to call it. Same the moon, like there is full moon and empty moon and half moon, just a shorter cycle, and therefore we experience it more. And of course, also during the day, it's like noon and midnight and sunrise and sunset, which is the daily ritual. But then there is the monthly ritual, and then the yearly. And if going more esoterically, so yeah, there are different planets, and then there are even galactic cycles beyond the solar system. Um, but it's kind of like these are the main three cycles we consciously experience: the day, the month, and the year. And because we all celebrate it, or nature celebrate it, and us humans have the opportunity to acknowledge that we are part of nature, we are part of Earth, celebrating these actual special days, not according to any identity based story of a specific date. It's all these stories, of course, based on victim identity that somehow gets liberated or something of such type, a gift from the gods, and the natural cycles is just that's how it is. It doesn't need the additional meaning to it. Yet, what would be the meaning? So I want to focus on the moon specifically this time. The moon, in relation to us humans, have some interesting qualities, and of course also to nature itself. In nature itself, it moves the tides, it moves the waters of the oceans and seas. So that would be an element, perhaps to say, or a state of matter that very much influenced by, which for us is tangible, the water, the liquid, and that already would be some characteristic of the meaning of the moon. And again, water can mean in different cultures different things, but water is waving, is in the flow, it can stand, but there's still movement, the spiral movement represent it much, or the wave. It's a source of nourishment for all life, and it gets the form of the container it is in, and many other characteristics we can give to water. Our relation with water, so of course we drink it and we clean with it. If we swim in it, it challenges us with the breathing in a new way, like we need to hold breath if we dive. The pressure is different as well if we dive. The movement as well, there is an element of movement there. So that's a whole element with many aspects. Another element that would be very relevant for the moon is the, perhaps to call it the cosmic hierarchy of, in a way, Earth is 1 degree higher in hierarchy than the moon and 1 degree lower in hierarchy than the sun, because it revolves around the sun, but the moon revolves around Earth. And that as well gives additional possibility for extracting the meaning or how to celebrate, what significance to give this specific day, the holiday, the full moon, the empty moon, the half moon, like what is the moon representing. I think Jung had a very perhaps to say eloquent definition of the archetype that the moon would represent, which is the shadow aspect. It's a little bit an entity by itself, but it is a sub-part of the persona of who we know ourselves as, or represent ourselves, like when I say hello, my name, or I am such and such. All of that idea of who am I in this context, the interpersonal context, it's the persona. And the shadow is a sub-part of it that works as an entity by itself at times. It's when we do something we don't really want to do, or even we decided not to do, but then we're not succeeding to stand in front of the temptation to still not to eat that thing, or not to be impulsive in any whatever way. This shadow aspect that is sometimes more hidden from the light of consciousness, from the shine of light of the sunlight on the moon. and sometimes more revealed. And that already gives some clue about the different aspects of the moon, the full, the empty, and the half moon. Because this meaning is defined in relation to the sun, to the conscious part, to the higher self, like the soul that incarnates into the earthly body, into this human being, into the earthling we are. And it's the soul as pure consciousness that comes in. It's like the solar body, perhaps to say, the body that travels also in different worlds in this solar system or in these different realms. But the soul, that spark of consciousness that we are, that shines, sometimes revealing the shadow called the shadow because it's hidden from the light of consciousness, of awareness. And sometimes the shadow is revealed, sometimes it's hidden. It's a cyclical thing that the moon can represent, and in a way is. And that as well have much relation to the flow of water, of the liquids within us as well. It's another element. Full moon would be the revelation of the shadow. Empty moon would be the states where it's hidden, where we are unaware. And of course the half moon, it's now midway towards full or towards empty moons. Another element which is as well perhaps to say more relates itself to human species, but also can relate to the human species as part of the wholeness of the planet. In a way, the planet is a superorganism that is conscious through us as well, and through every sentient being on Earth. It's experiencing life, and human as the animal with the most developed or evolved prefrontal cortex. In a way, metaphorically, human can be referred to as the prefrontal cortex of the planetary being of Earth itself as an entity, as a meta-organism. And the prefrontal cortex is as well where our persona is, the concept of persona is associated. The self, the abstract definition of self, and also of any other thing. It's just the ability to abstract perception. Every word we say have an abstract meaning. That's part of the idea of language, of verbal language. So it all starts with our ability to perceive ourself abstractly, which is in a way the ego or the persona, the start of the development of persona. And then we evolve it in interactions, and we make it more and more sophisticated and complex, and therefore it able to have more functions, such as speaking. We cannot speak if we don't have an ego or persona. Like words cannot have meaning because we have no ability to perceive abstract meaning, or just meaning is abstract in essence. So, as that part of Earth that is evolving the planetary persona, or holding the planetary ego, which prepares the planet in a way then to meet interpersonally other planets, other civilizations, or planets that became conscious through civilizations that are sub-part of them, a certain tissue of them. Still, Earth is growing, it's coming to maturity, to the development of an ego. Humanity still learns to how to get unified enough to explore beyond harmoniously, and not like as a fractured personality, split personality, like it parts, kind of, now. And as that part that signifies humanity, but keeps it as well as part of the whole planet. So we are the part that can become conscious to itself. It's like when the first astronaut took a photo of Earth from space. It's in a way the first selfie Earth took of itself. And now we all, how to say, it's fractalizing. Now we're all doing it. And it keeps on evolving, and as well we as part of this planet, this human body is part of Earth. Actually, that's the idea, and the soul is like what incarnates in the solar body. So if to go into the moon back, then there is an interesting relation between humans and the moon. Two things. First, just in relation to the previous, the consciousness and shadow as a significant aspect of Earth consciousness and awareness to the shadow piece. That was a relation to the moon. But there is another one. Human reproductive cycle is very much parallel to the moon cycle through women menstruation cycle. Most animals, or at least most mammals and reptiles and birds, their reproductive cycle is yearly and not lunar, not monthly, which is an interesting aspect because it kind of brings the aspect of sexuality or of fertility in relation to the moon. And it very much connects to the shadow aspect, because the shadow aspect is the entity that is constructed from the conscious material we are repressing to the subconscious, and that becomes an entity. The first repression that we are repressing, motivated by shame, is our sexual nature. We learn to hide our nudity. There is no other animal that have the pathology of shame on its own natural body appearance, to the fact that it needs to hide to such degree that even like, for example, in cinemas there can be violence and murder, even in cartoons, but to show a nipple, not to say something naked or sexual, this is like considered to be much more concerning and worse. So there is an extreme fear and avoidance of acknowledging this aspect. We keep it hidden. Even these days, after all the encouragement to wear masks, kind of brought up more of those trauma triggers of the shame, of the hiding, which we can experience it quite intensely, the suppression, the fight against, the call for empowerment and liberation. So in a way, our sexual nature is the densest aspect of the shadow. It's like the first repression that all other repressions accumulate upon and define the shadow aspect, the shadow being in us, the demon. And liberating our sexual nature, even with the myth of paradise, where Adam and Eve were naked. It's like before shame. It's when human race or species was innocent and more natural, and there was no that pathology, maybe to say, which today is normal. It's just we're used to it. But if to look it from a wider perspective of evolution of just another animal, it's absurd. It doesn't make any sense, especially if we compare it to violence that can literally kill. And nudity is just, it's disturbing just because social agreement aspect and not because it's actual risk in itself. Because of social repression and suppression that can be risky to bring someone to behave in a certain way, but that's a whole other layer of it. And this very much relates to the moon, to the shadow as well. So it's a bit more complex concept, but I find it essential in the what does celebrating the moon mean? And again, the empty moon, the full moon, which also through them there can be more understanding of the half moons, which is when these two polarities are more in balance, but in the motion towards one or the other. And the revelation of the shadow of our natural essence, or the hiding of it. And another aspect of the meaning of the moon would be, as well as yes, we can see ourselves as a soul incarnating into this human experience, but as a human experience, it's not just a dead body. There is a certain psyche, maybe to say, in relation with the body. And possible to say, like, as the soul is of a subtler material or essence than the human form, which is grosser. Even the human consciousness that is not integrated, it's still grosser than the soul consciousness. But same also the material expression. And in the body, it's possible to parallel it, like the skin is softer and the bones are denser. And the moon, in a way, could symbolize as well the densest aspect. Like, so when the human mind or the human psyche meets the densest aspect of the body and learns how to move it, and so movement, which can take to dance as well, it's like, I would say, another aspect of the moon. So water, movement, our sexual nature, sexual sensual nature, and including nudity and the shadow aspect in general. These are elements that seems to me would represent the or from those elements there will be built or constructed the how to celebrate the moon in its polarities and in its halves. And yeah, that's the idea. I'm curious what you think as well, and what ideas maybe you have as how to celebrate it, or what more. The idea is that it can be as creative as possible, so I find the embodiment as important part of it. The embodiment includes movement, includes sexuality, or more openness towards there. Of course, another element that is important, but that is not just with the moon, it's with all planetary holidays, or maybe to call it which is the community. It's we Earth celebrate it, so it's time to come together. That's why it is a celebration. It's like a festive vibe, maybe to say. And I mean, not necessarily of a feast, but of a festival or a holiday. And the sexuality and the movement can be practiced together as a sensual dynamic and dancing. And in water, that would be for me classic, because also dancing in the water brings some deeper need for embodiment, also because it's not the gravity we are used to moving, so it brings more awareness to the movement, deepening the embodiment in that aspect. But a major one is the breath thing. We are more conscious of our breathing. We are less going to chattering when we move like that, because we are more mindful about our breathing, about the air, and that allows to go more into the experience. So that kind of so far seems to me the finest integration of these elements as way to celebrate generally the moon quarters. To go into the nuances of full and empty and half, this I'll leave to another time, because it's already getting a bit long video, but I hope it was interesting. I'm curious what else you have to add, or what you think I missed, and or different opinions. Yeah, you're welcome to comment. Bless.